All right, let's take a look at number 11. Number 11 has a little different feel to me just because of the way it looks. It looks more of a like up and down into the first quadrant. It doesn't feel like it follows a circle, like first quadrant, third quadrant. It's more like following a line back and forth this way, as opposed to some of the other ones. Number 7 here is definitely a circular thing that's got some loops in it. Number 6, similar, very, very circular. And those circle ones, these circular ones are, you would expect sort of a main flow being a sine and a cosine, or a cosine and a sine for x and y. But here on number 11, um, let's get back up here, number 11, it feels more like the same, it's like it's headed up. In fact, if I just went in here and just took a guess of, sine t, and said, show me that, how do I reattempt this question? Why is this not letting me? There we go. Let's try it again here. Sine t. All right, submit. There we go. It gives me, oh, really small. Let's go with something like 9 and 9 here. Submit. Please let me submit. There we go. That having both x and y do exactly the same thing, you see this head up the first quadrant here, and then back down, and then down into the third quadrant, back down. This is sort of the middle of what's going on there. So it just feels different. It doesn't feel circular. It feels more straight. So I've got the base being the same. So let's stick with that. Let's stick with the sine. So if I'm starting with a base of a sine, that means I'm probably starting either at this point or that point on the x's anyway. So let's start at this point right here, okay? And I'm going to draw a graph of x versus t. So it's starting at 0. We go up as high as, what's that, a little over 3. It comes back down a little bit to about 1.5. And it climbs up to here at about 7.5. And it comes back down a little bit to there. What's that? Maybe 4.5-ish. And then it climbs all the way up to its highest point of 9. And then it comes back down to here. And boy, doesn't that look about the same as there? I'm just trying to line things up there, so it looks like it comes back down to about the same point. Goes back up to here, which seems like it's about the same as that one. So it goes back up just as high. And it drops down to there, which is about the same as that one. And back up again to here, which was the same as that one. Back to 0 right here, and then it does the same thing on the other side. Right, and it does this whole thing again on the other side. Down, up a little, way down, up a little, down, up a little, down, up a little. Right, and back down and back to 0. Okay. Definitely looks like a main flow of a sine curve right through the middle of everything here. Don't go as high as the highs, don't go as low as the lows, and just go right through the middle of everything. That looks like a sine curve. And, if this got up as high as, what was that, 9? So this is less than 9, 6 or 7 or something. I'm going to guess 6. So my main flow is going to be a 6 sine t. But on top of that, I've got these wiggles. Both of these things start in the same place, so it looks like I'm adding a sine curve onto it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wiggles like that. So that's going to be, what did I start with? I've got x equals, what did I say, 6 sine t, and I'm adding on to it a sine of 9t. What do we got to get up to? 9, so maybe 3. So my guess here is going to be plus 3 sine t. Submit. And it says 3 sine 9t. Sorry, let's type in what I actually wanted here. Submit. All right. So I don't have the y right, but at least I can look and see, that looks like it's lined up pretty good. That one lines up. That looks a little small. That looks a little high. I don't feel like I've got the wiggles quite right here. But let's go with that for the moment. I expect I've got to adjust some things, but let's graph now y versus t. So that was x versus t. Now I want y versus t. Starting at the same point, flying in the same direction. So it starts off here at 4, goes up a little bit, drops down, so it goes up a little bit to here, then drops down to about 0. The y coordinate then climbs clear up to, follow this, climbs clear up to the top, up to about 11. All right. Comes down to about there. What's that, about 3? And then goes back up to 8. And down to way down here to like -4. Back up to 0. Way down to the bottom. Back up to -3-ish. Down to -8-ish. And back to where we started from. I was thinking that this is probably a sine because it looks like it's staying mainly in the first and third quadrant, and that's what the x was doing. And I see, yeah, pretty much a sine curve running through here. The ends are, this is a little tricky as to know what's happening at the ends, but it feels like a sine. And if it is a sine, then I've got a cosine curve being added on top of it. And I see 1 bump, 2, 3, 4, 5 cycles of the cosine curve being added onto that. So I want to add on here a cosine of 5t. Now I got to add up to 11. One of the things I notice here, the back and forths in the x direction were pretty small, but the up and down, the back and forths in the y direction were pretty dramatic. You up to here, down to there, up to there. It's much bigger wiggles. So if I called that 3, this is going to be bigger than that. So I'm going to go with something maybe 4, and it's going to add up to a total of 11. So 7 and 4, let's say. Let's submit that. See what happens. Okay. What do I see? What do I see? I see this looking really good. Starts off uphill, drops down just about to 0. Oh, it says it's right. All right. I mean, it looks pretty good. The ups and downs I see look really good there. Actually, that's pretty close. But back and forth seems to be I'm going back and forth too much. So maybe I got to cut this wiggle down to maybe a 2. But I still have to add up to 9, so let's make that a 7. And submit again. Bingo, got it. This is a fairly standard way to do things, that you that you do a little guess and check, but it's not entirely guess and check. You draw these graphs. You draw these graphs to see what is x versus t, what is y versus t. Sorry, I didn't even write this one down. This is y equals. So this turned into a 7 and a 2, and this was a 7 sine t plus, what did we say, 4 cosine t, cosine 5t. Yeah, there we go. Follow around the curve, keeping track of just the x-coordinate. Do it again, same starting point, same direction, keeping track of just the y-coordinate. See what they look like. Smooth them out, take off the highs and the lows, split the difference between them. What does that look like? In this case, they both look like sine curves, but they have a little bit different wiggle on each of the sine curves. I'm guessing that number 12 has a similar kind of thing going on because it's just mainly first and third quadrant. So this is probably based, both of them being sine curves or both of them being cosine curves. The main flow looks very much the same here. Anyway, there's number 11 for you.